the Mormon church if they want to. But we wash them, no matter what. We do this service for that. We don't share your beliefs, lifestyle choices, etc., but we believe in your humanity. We believe that you've been called by God and are drawn by Christ, even if you don't know it yet. And you are worthy of our hospitality and welcome. To be known as a community that understands and lives the message of Christ. Does that sound familiar to anyone? That's our church vision. To be known as a community that understands and lives the message of Christ. And I don't know how many times I was, as a chaplain in the hospital, talking to somebody, visiting somebody, and the funny thing is, if you're in a certain kind of business, you know, only those people come and do this, only this brand of society buys Gucci shoes or whatever. Everybody gets sick, so you never know who you're going to be talking to. But I don't know how many times I was talking to somebody, and they would move, or their pant leg would come up, and I would see the ankle bracelet. And that ankle bracelet means they're on probation, and that they're being watched by the police for whatever reason. Do we wash the feet with the ankle bracelet on? We wash the feet no matter what's on them. Judas's feet were washed and still wet when he walked out into the night to betray Jesus. Jesus calls us to hold the wine and the bread in one hand and the wash basin and the cloth in the other. The wine and the bread in one hand to say who we are as a community and what we believe, and the wash basin to say that's what that means. That's what that means. The temptation in the world today is to drop this part and to say, oh, those exclusive beliefs don't really matter anymore. We weren't very serious about all that stuff. All religions are the same. We all believe the same thing. Everybody get along. And we say, no, sorry. We don't. It's not that way. It's not that way. We believe in a coherent story. We believe in a God who makes sense, and a world He made that makes sense. And then it comes together in Him. It's mysterious, absolutely, but we believe that it comes together in that way. And that we want to draw people to that story. And yet, on the other hand, we have that wash basin which we hold out. We serve blindly. We serve all people because they are loved and cherished by God. Jesus didn't say because you take communion right or get your theology right or all worked out that people will know you are my disciples. He said they will know that you are Christians by your love. They will know you are Christians by your love. That's right. There we go. See you later. Show love within the church, show love outside the church. Love, not theology, is the mark of a disciple. Theology is very important, but Jesus says we show our love first. We show our love first and last, I would argue. Our second clothesline for today. Now on the ground floor. Now at the ground floor. Let's look at our passage again. Look at our passage again in verse 31, just quickly. When Judas had gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified. Now. Now is the turning point. And I picture Jesus standing in the doorway watching Judas with his wet feet disappearing. We know from a few paragraphs before that Jesus said, the one who betrays me is the one who will take from the dish with me. And most likely, this was just a whisper, because John was on one side, and you know who was on the other side of Jesus at the last time? Judas. And John was close enough to him that he could whisper and say, Lord, who is it? And he said, it is the one who takes the bread from me. And then when he got up, he said, what you have to do, go and do it. And of course, John words it beautifully. Judas went out, and it was night. And it was dark. And it was dark. And the others are confused. That's how we know they didn't hear what Jesus said. The others are confused. They have no idea what's going on. He watches Judas go. He turns around, and he says, now, at my betrayal. That moment in the movie where you get involved with the characters and the plot and the sweep of the story, they earn your attention to say the main thing. You get some truth across. They slow the music down and bring the lighting in on one face. And Jesus says, now this is real. Now the bullets are whizzing by me and the bullets are real. Now I put a ring on that finger. Now I left home for good. All these things that bring it into clear light to say, now, this is real. I think of when Elsa was born. Heather loves this story. She woke up and she said, I think there's something going on. And I said, really? And we went to the hospital. And my daughter, as you all know, likes doing things her own way. So she decided that 3 weeks before our scheduled C-section, 4 weeks before our scheduled C-section, she was going to arrive. She said, I'm cooked long enough. See you in a minute. And she was ready to go, because she had some running to do and some things to trip over and stuff. She can't really even cross a room without hurting herself, but this is what we love about her. But Heather's favorite story is when we went to the hospital, we're getting all checked out, I'm going, what's going on, what's going on? And the doctor comes in and says, oh yeah, that, all right, we're good to go. And all the nurses grab her and they're pushing her out the door, and I'm standing in the corner on the other side of the room going, what's going on? And they said, we're having the baby now. Now. Now it's real. Now. Here it comes. Here we go. Now. Go time. That's what Jesus says here. This is the moment. Now. Just the moment that he is betrayed is the moment he is glorified. And let's look at this verse more clearly, or more closely here. It says, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. And now I hear that at first, and my thought is, John, shut up. John's saying words, glorify, 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 glorify. He's just word salad. That's John. But look closer. Now the Son of Man is glorified. God the Father is glorified in him. They're glorifying the Holy Spirit. Jesus is showing us the center of reality at that point. The center of reality, the Trinity loving each other, glorifying each other. This is what it's all about. This is the neutrons and electrons of existence. Through the millennia, the Trinity glorifying each other, loving each other back and forth. The Father will glorify me, I will glorify him. The Spirit will glorify me, I will glorify him. This is the center of reality. It is in this moment of danger and stress that Jesus chooses to speak with such clarity. This is the center of reality. This is what it's like. God glorifies God through love, and sometimes it hurts. And here he is on the ground floor watching Judas with his feet still wet, disappearing into the night. And our final point today, out on the ground floor. Out on the ground floor. In verse 33, little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Judeans, so now I also say to you, where I am going you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. You'll notice I said Judeans there instead of Jews. As much as possible, I will say Judeans or Israelites instead of Jews, because we have a tendency to get the Jews have been hurt enough. And I don't like saying that word as much because you think of people as they are now. Jesus was talking about people as they are then. So just to let you know, that's my little point, a little courtesy that I try to do. Absolutely. We, of course, pray that they come to Christ, absolutely, all the time. But we also want to be as gracious and courteous and foot-washing as possible. So, anyway, that one's free. Let's go on. Little children. Little children. This is an intimate phrase here. It's not the compatriot, my brothers and my friends, that Jesus often used. Little children, my precious ones, my close ones. This is this intimate moment with him. And he never uses that phrase again. One place that he uses this phrase, and the only other person that uses that phrase again is John in his writing to his churches in his epistles. John, remembering that night, remembering that phrase that meant so much to him, little children, he used about 7 times in just a little bit of writing he did after this. So little children, The only time Jesus ever said that. And he said it in the night, knowing that his death had been set in motion. And we are told several other places about where Jesus said the greatest commandments in the law are: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. And yet here he adds his own little flavor on there. Love as I have loved you. His own turn on the greatest commandment. Jesus did this all over the place. He never denied the law, but he fulfilled the law. He took our expectation and understanding and put his own spin on it, showed us what it was really about. We thought we were good not committing murder, and he said, you can't hate either. It's about the heart. That's the same thing. We thought we were good being physically faithful to our spouses, and he said, you can't have lustful thoughts either. It's about the heart. Jesus did his own spin on all these little things. So you look back in the story and you say, if someone was making this up, it would be a lot more straightforward. And it just isn't. It just isn't, because Jesus was there saying these things. We thought the resurrection, as discussed in the Old Testament where it appears, would be the end. That would be it. That would be the end of the world. And Jesus says, I am the resurrection. I'll be the first one. I'll be the first one. His own thing. His own thing. We thought we were fine loving others as we love ourselves. And Jesus said, I see how you all treat yourselves. Forget that. Love others as I have loved you. Right? I've seen how you treat yourselves. I've been down here watching how you guys treat yourselves. Let's spin that a little bit better. And Jesus has just shown them what that means. The water on the floor, the rag hung in the window to dry. That's what loving as he loves means. Taking off that outer garment of self and status and self-protection and serving others in love. Taking communion as a body to declare and strengthen our faith, and then walking out on the ground floor to serve, to wash every pair of feet that comes along. It's interesting if you look closely at verse 14. Verse 14, if I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. And in verse 34, just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. He never says, wash my feet, because there'd be a line around the block. Everybody trying to wash his feet. He offers us the much more difficult challenge. Wash each other's feet. Love each other. Now here I have to quote one of my favorite obese British thinkers. It's a long quote. I'll just read it to you. This is G.K. Chesterton, the big influence on C.S. Lewis. We make our friends, we make our enemies, but God makes our neighbor. The old scriptural language showed so sharp a wisdom when it spoke not of one's duty towards humanity, but of one's duty towards the neighbor. The duty towards humanity may take a form of some choice which is personal or even pleasurable, but we have to love our neighbor because he is there. A much more alarming reason for a much more serious operation. He is the sample of humanity which is actually given to us. Precisely because he may be anybody, he is everybody. He is a symbol because he is an accident. Loving your neighbor, loving one another, that's a more difficult challenge. I love how Chesterton puts us here. You can make your enemies. You can make your friends. What is that? You can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose, right? You can pick all these things, but you can't pick your family. You can't pick your neighbor either. The 11 people left in that room, the 11 people, Judas was gone by that point. The apostles, they didn't choose each other. Jesus chose them. We know enough about them to know that most of them wouldn't have gotten along. And then he told them to love each other, washing each other's feet on the ground floor, because this is where he is present. Chesterton, in this quote, knocks down our vague, abstract ideas of our love for all humanity and all these things, and says, no, you have to love Larry. Larry with his, his gimpy leg and his bad breath. And you have to love Miss Cynthia with her cheap cigarettes and her hairnet. You have to love your neighbor. You have to love your neighbor. You love your brothers and sisters in the church, whose faults are ever evident, especially if you have known each other since the beginning of time, like all of you guys. You guys are such a close community. You love God, yes, okay. You cry when you read your Bible. You try not to say swears when you stub your toe. You sing along with K-Love, whatever. But if your love for God is not shown in your neighbor, then forget it. Sorry. If your theology doesn't play out in the way you treat the kid at McDonald's, then you need to rethink your theology. Jesus didn't ask us to wash his feet, but to wash each other's, and that's much harder. This is the great moment here when the story is coming to the head. He has all the reader's attention. He gets down on his knees on the ground floor and says, "You do the same." So what does it mean to wash each other's feet? In our day and time, we do foot washing once a year here. I love the ceremony. I think it's really important for us. Got canceled from snow. We're figuring it out. We'll get there. We'll do it. Amen. But we have to remember that this was not a ceremony in Jesus' day. This is an everyday thing. This is like brushing your teeth or flossing. You know, it was just part of life. It was part of life, taking your shoes off at the door. That was it. Not everybody had foot washers, but if you were any sort of middle class or upper middle class, you had somebody do it for you. That was it. It wasn't this great ceremony. And it was not done by somebody who was treated particularly bad or particularly well. They were just disregarded. The foot washer disappeared. They put themselves aside at that moment, just as Jesus put aside his outer garment. And I think of one of the ways that we do this in our culture today is by truly listening to people. You put yourself aside when you listen to someone. Not thinking about what you're going to say. Not looking in their speech for something you can buy or sell or be entertained by, but listening to them. Letting them occupy your attention. Occupy your attention and take that center stage. To give someone your attention when we have thousands of stimuli demanding it in our culture. This is a true gift. Truly washing those feet in front of us. I was talking with my kids